Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Regular viewers will know I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Well, today we're taking a look at two cameras. We're taking a look at the Panasonic G9, which is this one here. Fantastic camera. I use it a great deal for both stills and video. I suppose I use it primarily for video, to be honest, but that's the Panasonic G9 we're going to be taking a look at, and its competitor, which is the Olympus OM-D E-M1 Mark II. And I got it right, the OM-D E-M1 Mark II. And my biggest complaint with this particular camera is its name, OM-D E-M1 Mark II. So there we go, that's what we're looking at. Now the reason why I'm comparing these two cameras is because they're both really sort of competing with each other. They're both micro four thirds and they both have very similar features and they're at a similar price point today. I guess they never used to be, but they are now. Particularly if you're buying second hand, and I would very much encourage looking at the used market. If you look at companies like Wets Photographic, MPB, Camera Jungle, etc., they have some really good quality cameras at great prices. And both of these I got from Wex. I got them at a really good price. They both got them used. So let's take a look at the G9. The G9 is a slightly bulkier body. I say slightly, it's got a really nice grip. I like the grips of the G9, but also like the grips of the OM-D. So they're both very comparable. This is a slightly bigger. Nice feel to it, nice quality feel. It's a bit heavier than the OM-D. This weighs in at, where are we? Yes, 678 grams, where the OM-D body only weighs in at 591. So if you are looking for a more compact camera, you may want to go for the OM-D. But the G9 has some amazing features, and I'm going to briefly go through some of these features now. I'm not going to go through all of them because you can get most of the features and it's what it can do online. But we'll start on the side here. Two USB 2 SD card slots, not just one, but two USB 2s. That is really handy. I use one for raw images and slot 2 for JPEGs, but I also use just one or the other for videos. So two SD card slots, as I say, really nice grip, plenty of function buttons. One thing I do like about both the Olympus and the G9 is its customizability. It's really good. Top plate, you have LCD panel on the top plate. I don't use it a great deal, but occasionally it has uses. You can see your shutter speed, apertures, exposure compensation, battery level and all that kind of malarkey. That's on the top plate. The OM-D has no LCD on the top plate. I think that's why they managed to make it just, you know, it is a little bit thinner. It's not quite as thick as the G9. So LCD on the top plate. Three particular custom function buttons: white balance, ISO and exposure compensation. Push that to adjust your exposure compensation. PASM dial, lockable PASM dial, as is on the OM-1 too. You've got autofocus mode selector, proper switch there for switching between AFS, continuous autofocus and manual autofocus. I tend to leave it in autofocus single. A joystick for setting your focus point, that's quite common on modern cameras. The OM-D doesn't have that. That's one of its slight drawbacks. You have to use the pad on the back for moving your focus points. Not a big deal, but slightly, it just takes a little bit longer possibly. But once you get used to how you do it on the OM-D, no problem. Lovely sharp big viewfinder on the G9. That's one of its biggest selling points, I think, is its viewfinder. As I say, plethora of function buttons on the back here. 3-inch tilty-wilty touchscreen. That's the same as on the OM-D. And you've got your, on the side here, you've got your various ports. Microphone, headphone jack, all weather sealed. beautifully made, you know, really, really good gaskets on it. And then you've got your USB, it's USB 3, which was a slight disappointment. Wish it was USB-C, but USB 3 for transferring files and powering it. You can power it and charge it via USB, which is great. And a full-size HDMI port, way for us video producers, full-size HDMI port. And also, as far as video is concerned, this has a lot more flexibility for video than what the OM-D has. But that's not saying the OM-D isn't any good, because it is. The G9's biggest points really is that it has 10-bit internal video recording and 10-bit external via the HDMI port, whereby the OM-D is only 10-bit output through the HDMI, 8-bit internal. I mean, you know, unless you're doing colour grading and green screen work, you're not going to find much difference between either of them, in all honesty. But that's one of its biggest points. And with a version 3 firmware update, you've now got animal detect. And I'll go through some of the images to show you how that works, and it's great. If you really are into wildlife photography, it may well be worth looking at the G9, because I don't think you'll be disappointed with how the animal eye detect works. So the G9 is a bigger camera, but effectively, you know, very similar to the OM-D. 20 megapixel sensor, same as on the OM-D. It's probably the same sensor. I have no idea, to be honest, if it is or if it isn't, but I suspect it probably is. And as I say, it's a micro four thirds sensor, so you know, you get really nice results. Honestly, I'm really becoming converted to micro four thirds. They are more compact cameras, and you still get great results. Not awesome in low light, but then you've got the 5-axis image stabilization in both the G9 and the Olympus to help you around that. Not useful if you're photographing moving subjects, because you still get motion blur. But if you're photographing static subjects, the 5-axis image stabilization is absolutely fantastic. You can go really right down to 1 or 2 seconds, possibly even longer handheld. And when you use a Panasonic lens, certain Panasonic lenses on a Panasonic body, particularly the G9 works with it, you have dual image stabilization. So if, for example, I stuck my Panasonic 100 to 300, which I do use on here quite a bit actually, you end up with dual image stabilization. You don't get that on the Olympus. If you put a Panasonic lens on it, it will take it, but you don't get the dual image stabilization. So that's another advantage with the G9. If you're using, you know, if you're doing wildlife photography and you want to stick on one of their longer lenses, you'll get dual image stabilization. So that's effectively the G9 in a very quick way. The OM-D E-M1 Mark II, as I say, a little bit more compact. The little finger does slip off the bottom of the camera a bit, but you know, I actually enjoy using the OM-D. I thoroughly enjoy using the OM-D, and I've got on it its little pancake lens fitted at the moment, just for ease of use. As I say, you've got on the top here your 2 master control dials, lovely position. I mean, really nicely positioned. The ergonomics of the OM-D is fantastic. So you've got those, you've got function button, I've got that preset for ISO, your PASM dial, master control dial on the top here. Again, it's lockable just as it is on the G9. And then you've got your master on-off switch on the side here, on-off. But you've also got your autofocus settings and your white balance settings and various other settings on the top there. More function buttons on the back. And then you've got your 3-inch tilty-wilty screen, which is, not tilty, articulating screen, which is pretty common on, you know, many cameras these days. And obviously if you're doing vlogging, same with the G9, it is, you know, really, really useful. And this camera is nice and compact for doing vlogging, particularly if you use a pancake lens such as this one. I will be doing a separate video on the vlogging results with the Olympus compared to the Panasonic. So that'd be interesting. I'm not really into vlogging, but I'm interested to find out what the differences are. I suspect the winner might well be the Olympus. A, the ergonomics of the Olympus, you know, I really like, and B, it's got a version 3 firmware update, and the autofocus is apparently a lot better. So we shall test that out, because this has dual pixel autofocus on the Olympus, where the Panasonic relies on depth from defocus, which is Panasonic's terminology basically for contrast autofocus. So that's the Olympus OM-D. Now, there's a few advantages to the OM-D over the G9 as well. Although video side isn't quite as good as on the G9 to some extent, it still does 4K video and it does cinema 4K. I can't remember, I don't think the G9 does cinema 4K, but you know, who needs that? And it's got the various slow motion effects, etc, etc. But where this gains for me is its customizability. Now, it's got, as I say, I haven't mentioned actually, 2 card slots on the side, same as on the G9. So you've got your twin card slots on the side there, which is great. Only one of them is UHS 2, the other one is UHS 1. Where on the G9, they're both UHS 2, so they're faster, they read faster, they'll buffer quicker and what have you. But this one has only got the 1. So it might be just a tad slower, particularly if you're doing burst photography, you know, at sports events or something like that. But I use one again for RAWs and one for JPEGs and one for video. But where this really does score is its flexibility with its function buttons. Now, you can set them up. So when you're doing video, you can set your aperture, shutter speeds and the function buttons to do different things. But when you're in photographs or photography mode, you can set them up for different things, and that's phenomenal. I really like that. So, you know, you might have, say for example, there's 2 function buttons on the front here. So in video, you might have a top one set for focus peaking or zebra settings or whatever. So you want to then take some photographs, so you put it onto aperture or shutter priority. The top one then might be for adjusting your meter settings or for focus settings or whatever. So that is great. When you go from one mode to another, your settings don't change, and I really like that, and your function buttons do different things, so that's great. You can't do that on the G9. I was really quite disappointed with that, but it does the same in both, so I found that a bit disappointing, but you know, not a big deal. And on the back here, it's got a lever. Again, you can set it up to do different things. I've got mine set up for video because that's obviously, with doing this channel, that's a lot of work that I do. So in the top position, when I'm in video mode, those controls on the top here will adjust the aperture and shutter speed, because I always shoot manually. But when you put it into the bottom, one will adjust the audio input level and the other one will adjust the headphone level. So it's phenomenal. 20 megapixel sensor, same as on the G9, probably mentioned that. And you know, micro 4/3 mount, obviously exactly the same, takes exactly the same lenses, you get pretty much the same results. And there it is, that's the micro 4/3 mount on there. And it's very customizable. What I like about it is the ergonomics though. I much prefer handling the OM-D E-M1 Mark II. I say much prefer, I prefer the OM-D E-M1 Mark II over the G9. But in all honesty, I'm quite happy going out with either or. If I didn't have a choice, I'd be quite happy with both, you know, so not a problem there at all. So yeah, great piece of kit. And you know, I mean, I think the main differences are the G9 is more video centric. It's got a great deal of video features, you know, from the 10-bit internal recording to many other features that the G9 has, where the OM-D doesn't have them. It does 4K video, so you're going to get some great 4K footage out of here. But the autofocus, I think, will be better on the OM-D than what it is on the G9. So, but if you're doing stills, they're both going to, you know, produce fantastic results. Although the OM-D doesn't have animal eye detect, where the G9 does. Whether that's important or not is debatable, to be honest. On the OM-D, it doesn't have a joystick like it does on the G9 for moving your focus points around. You basically hit the that function button there, and you move your focus points around the screen like that, and then you can adjust the size of those focus points and the focus area. See, that's, oh, you probably can't see that, that's tiny. A really pinpoint focus point that gets a bit bigger, and then that's wide focus area. The camera will decide where it's going to focus. I don't tend to use this sort of function button for setting the focus points. I tend to just tap the screen and then and then use the screen to set the focus point. I find that you know, much quicker, much easier. So yeah, that's the OM-D E-M1 Mark II, and compared to the Panasonic G9, they're both excellent cameras. I mean, image wise, well, I mean, you can't really choose between them. It's just what you need to really just look at what you think, you know, what handles better, because, you know, they're just great. They're both really good, but the G9 does have this animal eye detect. Sorry, yeah, well, animal eye detect and face detect. You get lovely, 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 lovely jubbly images because of it. And it is really good, trust me. I found it really, when you try and chase around an animal moving fast, and to be able to, you know, get the focus point bang on their eyeball is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm very, very chuffed to bits with that. But again, on the E-M1 Mark II, you know, you're still going to get amazingly sharp images. And that hasn't got animal eye detect, you know. They're just so nice. Yeah, both of them are great cameras. As to what you won't be disappointed with whatever you buy. I like going out with the OM-D simply because I like the handling and I like the layout of the function buttons. I do miss the fact it hasn't got a joystick for moving your focus points. But the other thing that is really great on both the G9 and the OM-D, although the G9 does it better than what the OM-D does, is when you've got your eye up to the viewfinder, turn it on. When you've got your eye up to the viewfinder, you can move your focus, because it's touchscreen on the back here, you can move your focus points around. I mean, I know you can't see that, but you can move your focus points around, or focus points around. So you don't really need the joystick. You can use the joystick. Joystick does it just as well, you know. And obviously the joystick moves the focus point around just as well. If you're not using the viewfinder, that gets a bit grubby. And the same applies with the OM-D. You can move your focus points around simply by touching the screen, and then you move your focus points around like that. Not always 100% responsive though, and that might be because my nose is touching the screen. It works 90% of the time, but there will be that occasion you think, why isn't it moving? Yeah, great camera. I like the viewfinder of the OM-D. It's not as sharp, funnily enough, but the text is much bigger. And with my crap eyes, it's nice to be able to clearly see your shutter speed and the aperture that the camera's setting and your ISO. It's just bigger text at the bottom of the screen, but that's just a personal thing. So there we go. I don't know if I've muddied the waters further or whether I've helped clarify the differences. There isn't a great deal of differences between either of them. They're both great cameras. So there we go. That's my thoughts on the OM-D E-M1 Mark II and the Panasonic G9. Images will be up on my Flickr site. I shall put links to the pages where you will find these images in the description below. If you do like this channel and you found this useful, please subscribe. That really is helpful to the channel. And hit the like button if you found this video useful. Thanks very much. See you again soon. Bye for now.